Some societies make minority opinions and dissenting opinions a punishable offense with even the death penalty. America didn't used to do that, but we've killed a lot of Kennedys. I was tortured, and there's a lot of change in sentiments about fighting over words. But one of the problems with minority opinions is that people listen to what you say with an ear towards its political power. And that's their doing. They're not listening with a reasoning mind, in other words. They're sizing up whether they can follow it for its power. And that's not going to be healthy for a minority opinion because minority opinions of legitimate dissent are often based on facts. For example, the judge Harlan, who dissented in Plessy versus Ferguson, withstood the test of time. His dissent in favor of giving black people equality was shot down by the majority of the Supreme Court. Today, he could get shot even for having that opinion, not just by the Ku Klux Klan, but also by black people because he's not black and he's trying to play all big by speaking for them. Black people, even left alone by white people, have problems with minority opinions. I saw a boy who was aggressive, an underclass, attacking a well-dressed black kid carrying school books. And he was hitting him and knocking over his school books. Well, the church has this kind of problem with fascism. Fascism comes along and says your ideas sound nice, but I'm stronger than you. I'm going to just take what you have from you. And might will make right. And they stack a whole lot of stories to justify themselves. They're basically stealing from somebody and beating them up. So the church has a tendency to say, well, we'll make a deal with you. They're not the only people who make deals with fascism. Russia makes deals with fascism. Stalin had a non-aggression pact with Hitler for as long as it served them, till Hitler turned on them. 50-50. Now, when you look at somebody like Reagan and the way that he hid what he was up to as a fascist, Oswald was in the Russian community for quite some time, and Reagan produced Oswald from his executive chair in the hidden chamber of the Twilight Zone, as my research has proven perfectly clearly. And so he was going into a non-aggression pact with Andropov, the head of the Russian secret police, with regard to Oswald. They were going 50-50 on the Kennedy assassination. Trumpy, Toon, and Putin had COVID worked out between them. It was perfectly obvious. You could read it from all of their signals, smelting midges and so on. They had the way they did like this after they poisoned me in the lip. So to understand what's going on, all you have to do is go to Tacoma Community College and check out this book, Religion in the Soviet Union by Walter Cullors. It was already obvious that Walter Pentagon Disney, was building an ark with the help of Russia. When my father's obituary came back with the German Green Party and Don Ono Netanyahu encryption, justifying Mount Desert Island by saying that Goebbels was the leader of the Jewish Defense League. That's what the NAACP said that brazenly in the city of Pittsburgh. The Goebbels represent the JDL, and then they ran me out of town for testifying against John Schulman, who they arrested as the honorary, the black man, in a multi-million-dollar museum heist. And they were cheering a reckless white driver who nearly mowed down black kids at Kelly's school because he was getting them in the loop with the stolen duck. That's the truth of it, all the way here to Tacoma. The police wouldn't dream of looking at John Schulman's bedfellow, Adam Eisenstadt, who was a ghostwriter for Donald Trump. Where were these $1 million books going? So if you look at the card on this book, Religion in the Soviet Union, it's called, okay? I want to make sure everybody sees it here. Okay, see how it says religion, Walter Colors, religion in the Soviet Union, Walter Colors, religion in the Soviet Union, right? And then who has checked it out? 1974, two people checked it out. Dahlia Dugan, Dahlia Dugan, D for DD, and someone named Mark Wagner. Wagner is the secret army of Russia. So Russia was in on Hitler Reagan's script that was found in Highland Park of Pittsburgh, signed Gail Burrison. And Yoko Ono was the master of ceremonies for this. She attacked me, who was one of these people who, with a girl who told me when I cried, oh, people always cry. What does it matter if you cry? So Leigh's the person who wrote the script completely alone because she has the blessings of Putin in the matter and Donald Trump. So a look-alike of the girl who wrote the letter, the script, gay, ill Carolyn Burston, who Seattle queers all supported through the whole thing. Appears on a 1979 record of Robert Fripp, who worked with Brian Eno on this stuff. Eno and Putin go way back. Fripp and Donald Trump go way, way back. Mick Jagger shows up in Tel Aviv after rescuing the queers with Gail Burston from the whiny crybaby of Highland Park, who tried to convince himself that Reagan didn't know. So you have this situation with Lenin, where the victims are helplessly deceived by Lenin. They can't bear to be anything but love slaves to the people who exterminated them. And that becomes a wall around Gaza. Now, look at Pierre's, what's his name? Is it Morgan? He can't stand, he asked Rainier Kayla, do you denounce Hamas? She says they were a slave uprising because, and Pierre's bites that, says, oh, that's a terrible thing to say. Israel has the right to defend itself. Both of these people are perniciously advocating the team, us versus them situation. It's Israel versus Hamas and Hamas versus Israel. But that's not what really happened. Hamas incited a man named Sinwar, which is a holdover from the AIDS attack when Yoko Ono was Sinwaring the queers with Lenin. Spirit of Lenin, okay, the martyr spirit, gave Netanyahu what he needed to exterminate Gaza. And they're not using, Hamas isn't using Palestinians as human shields. They have nowhere else to turn. There is at sea about what's going on, as the Seattle queers should be able to claim they were, but I doubt now. I think that too many of them were in the loop. There's too many suicides that are conspicuous in the loop. Too many Aaron Bushnells pulling Sean Strub babies with Michael Foe called at UW Dialectical. So you have this situation where they are alone. And that's the problem with minority dissent, is that you're alone. You might reach one other person. It has no political sway at all. If my speech reaches you psychologically and you understand what you're saying, you are alone. The people in Gaza are alone against Israel and Hamas. The people in Seattle are alone against the AIDS attackers and themselves because they're so horrifyingly self-deceived. Now, when you look at the situation with Piers Morgan, it's a team spirit problem there. But there's other factors that go very deeply into the psychology of the way that black people drift in Trump's direction, because he has seduced them to believe that people who are rich and deserving have earned their keep and should be allowed to be rewarded, which may very often be true. I was certainly appalled that the little black monster was beating up a kid who was trying to do his work. Okay, I've always been appalled by that, the way that King Crimson came down on me with lasers and Clint Eastwood to justify a massacre, obliterating blindside attack by armed child traffickers, because they were seething and sneering with panty dew for the attackers. So, and they weeping, Reagan didn't know, Reagan didn't know. And this was their mantra. Louis Law from Harper's Magazines chided about people who have their tears for sale. Well, Israel doesn't allow Gazans to even collect rainwater. You can be shot for putting out a bucket to collect rainwater because they say the rainwater belongs to them. They also say the tears belong to them. Yoko Ono owns you by your tears for Lenin, which was all a deceit from psychotics like Ken Russell came up with it. So Oliver Dubois Stone interviews this Dexter King and says, your dad, he was really something, wasn't he? And Dexter waxes all, oh, he was an honorable man. You shouldn't speak that way about him. What he should have said is that the scummy, underhanded slur on a very dignified man who was living in a time of social tumult that was, after all, the 60s. And you're making this rabid slur about him during an AIDS attack designed to burn people who dalliance as though they are witches. And he didn't have the courage to say that because he would founded intellectual property management. And the Morgans had gotten his ear like Greener Wormtongue, Penis Gabriel, and Amanda Harcourt. Yeah, there's money in it, Dyslexter. We're going to get the Pussyball team to score Ms. Goto of the UN for the African Scholars Branch of the anti-apartheid movement. We're going to get Zuma revenge, man, like Montezuma's revenge. And Eno was working all of these linguistics. Instead of coming right out and confronting the issue and trying to protect the at risk, they said, one size fits all, we'll make a record and sell the Beatles. And that's what this horrifying showcase is about. And what they did was, you won't find anybody in Seattle who hasn't heard for 25 years that my warnings that Israel and Netanyahu were involved in the AIDS attack. You won't find anybody. Dan Savage, the stranger, heard me for hours and even agreed with my concern about the evidence and laughed. They proceeded to cover up every detail for Yoko Ono so that she could strut around in the TikTok war while they exterminated Gaza. Make no mistake, they were fully informed and warned. All of them were. And they were laughing up their sleeve because Eno was talking to Putin behind Jimmy Queerball's back. All of them were informed. They all knew, and not one of them would even deny it, because they can say, Lenin was really killed and Reagan didn't know. Ha, 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 ha. And tanks will just roll over Gaza and smash the children to bits and bury them alive while Seattle's going, ha, 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 ha.